Hello everyone. Thanks for having me.
Hello, good afternoon. Yes, good afternoon. You're welcome.
Everyone already sees my screen, I hope.
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can see you. We can, please.
Perfect. A short overview about our company so that you know with who you're talking. So we have different operations around the globe. At the moment, around about 60 factories overall. We are 6,500 people with a turnover of about 2.5 billion euro. The company was founded in 1950 and is 100% family owned and family managed. Before going into the details, as we already had heard a lot about the CLT production, I will take the topic, how do we process trees to create engineered wood? And first of all, I would jump into a general point. Typically, we have the timber divided in two species, if we want to call it like this. Conifer, needle tree, softwood, how it's often called, or leaf tree, hardwood. Typically, we only work in the sector of the softwood, so which means spruce, larch, Douglas, and pine. That's also the timber that is normally used for the construction. Hardwood typically is used for flooring, high quality interior, and so on. Reasons for it, let's say, normally the softwood, as the name already says, it's softer. That means it's easier to process through the whole chain. So not only in producing, I need different machines, but also on, for example, on the assembly. Through a softwood, I can easily drill a screw through a hardwood not. I would always need to pre-drill. So differences, I think everyone probably knows a little bit. Softwood is light and it almost looks also light. Hardwood typically looks dark and is way heavier. So basically in our method of construction, typically we have, we as a company have mainly spruce and pine, but there are others also using larch as well, let's say. And there are different types of pine. Let's say in South Africa or in Africa, we have different types of pines than you have in Australia or also in the US. Now the topic, how do we process trees? First of all, I found a nice picture of how trees get processed. I only have it in German, but I will try to translate. So let's see, that's how trees are getting cutted with different sections. So basically important to know is around about 60% of the tree is primary material and 30% of the tree is secondary material. That means dust and everything else. So as we can perfectly see here on the picture, for example, typically CLT, let me check if I get here a laser pointer. Typically CLT would probably be one of those boards, let's say, and glulam one of those boards, depending a little bit on the section. So you do not cut out 100% of a tree, just CLT or just glulam. And that's also how our company is structured. So we as a company are structured to use 100% of the raw material. So we are directly starting, I will go more in detail later on, with the forestry service, reforestation and harvesting. Then we go into the sawmills, into the sawing products, into the timber construction products. That's the most interesting part of this webinar, let's say, but also into biofuels and pallets, for example. This brings me to the division, like you've seen at the tree. So it is not 100% out of the tree is a structural timber. And this brings me to the different pillars that we have. For example, we're starting with a tree nursery. We're having our own forest management. Then you have basic products where you have just lumber. Then you have the DIY products, construction solutions, or also biofuels and pallets. Here some pictures. That's, for example, how we are processing the trees. Let's say here we're starting with our tree nurseries. And then in the most countries that we are operating, we have our own cutting companies. they are going into the forest for harvesting and bringing them to our own sawmills. Here, to get a little bit an overview, I've prepared you some of our sawmill sites. For example, that's our, on the left hand, that's our headquarter. To give you a number, this sawmill cuts around about 1.05 million cubic of trees a year. That's between 5,000 and 6,000 cubic per day. And if we divide it, that's, for example, around about 200 trees an hour. Brings me to the numbers. 50 million trees we are setting each year. And we are producing around about 5.2 million cubic of lumber, which means between 7 and 8 million cubic of trees cut down. And as we heard already before, the numbers, I think important here to understand is that it's not only CLT, because if I take this 5.2 million lumber and take the glulam numbers that we are doing and the CLT numbers, we are at 600,000 cubic, let's say, and let's round it up, it's 10% of our business. So important to understand is not 100% of it goes only into this high level manufactured timber products, so to say, if we want. So important is the diversity, and I think the diversity you perfectly see here with the numbers. I can show you a little bit of how, as we were speaking so much about numbers and how our finished lines look like. That's, for example, a 3-layer production. That's our glulam production. It starts here and ends here. Get a little bit of an impression. That's our CLT lines. I think important to understand, if we go into the topic how to process trees to get engineered timber products out of it, I think better the input is, better the output is, and that's relevant for the whole chain of processing the tree. So better I'm able to control, or let's say diverse my products through the chain, better on each single product I have the products ready for me to use. Thanks for the attention. I know it was quite short, but I think otherwise I would talk a third time about the CLT production, and we already had 2 good presentations up front about it. So I think not worth seeing a third time the CLT production.